T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis on a mission to build, resupply, and to do research on the International Space Station. Houston.
Hi, good morning, everybody, especially in our social Facebook, in YouTube, in LinkedIn, especially for those who listen to this podcast in Spotify. Today, we have a special topic. We have a special guest as well. We are going to talk about the power of learning in our life. It's dedicated to people who have bring teams to the moon. And I want to introduce a lovely woman from Portugal. She is passionate about learning, create impactful shared experience. This passion combined with restless with the status quo have led to the question, what are the alternatives to the way we learn, work, live, and relate to others? She actually the management 3.0 community. She is also a facilitator, learning design, and she has a podcast, and a special podcast about learning. It's called Learning Day. So let's welcome Sara to this space.
Hello,
Hi,
Fabian.
Sara. Good morning in Colombia. Good afternoon.
Yes. Good afternoon for me, but I know it's very early there on your side.
How are you?
As I was telling you earlier, I'm having like a low energy day, but it's okay. It's about accepting the ups and the downs. But I'm very excited to be here and to talk about this topic that excites me so much. That is learning. So yeah, thank you for having me. And how are you, Fabian?
I'm happy, and I think that every day I have to bath of motivation. So I start my day with a special coffee that I drink and a special reading that I have just to wake up my mind and start the day with high energy. But in the afternoon, I am and used to low my energy as you. It's like
Yeah.
that. Sarah, for those who are listening to us, just tell us a little bit about you. Who is Sarah, and what you love for living.
Yes. Yeah, it's always hard to define myself, and I try to avoid using the job title, although it's very, very hard. I think above anything else, I'm passionate about life, and I'm a lifelong learner, and I think those two things come together. So I don't say that just because the topic of today is learning. That would be my answer in any situation, um, because I think what guided me throughout my life and the different experiences that I had, professional and personal, happened because I was looking after improving myself, but also just the curiosity of like, what if I try this out? And so that I'm above anything else a lifelong learner. But in terms of what I do for a living, I am the community builder at Management 3.0, as you mentioned, and that's where we met. This wonderful community of people all over the world. I think we are at 54 countries now, and that makes my heart very warm. And I also work as a facilitator, learning designer, and that's the context in which I started the Learning Day podcast and community, where we explore how we integrate learning into our everyday lives.
Sarah, you say that you are a lifelong learner and you are passionate about that. When you are passionate about something and you are learning every day, you have to keep motion alive. Do you have like any trick or any steps that you make every day to keep that emotion, that positive emotion that facilitate the learning process?
I think for me, it's more about listening to the emotions that come up, less about creating a specific one. Because I think all of them are valuable and they have a message for us. So either if they are positive or negative, however we like to describe them in those two buckets. So one thing I do every day is I wake up, I make my coffee, and then I go to the balcony if the weather allows, and I do a reflection that has two questions. The first one is, what am I grateful for? The second is, what do I want? And that is for that day. And what if? And I love this last question. What if? Some people prefer why not, but I really like what if. And I think starting the day with those three questions really sets an intention. So it allows you to listen to those emotions, what is coming up, and then setting an intention for that day. That might be to stay positive, it might be to just accept that you're not very positive on that day, or to try to have a different mindset from what you woke up with. So I think that that is really helpful.
A question in your podcast for every guest that I'm going to ask you in the first part, and is what is learning?
That is the hardest question. So, yes, I've asked that to a lot of people on my podcast. What is learning for you? And I can say the answers that I got are very varied, but they all like go towards the same idea. That is, learning is life. So it's not like a process that happens in your brain or something you do to advance in your career, or it's nothing like that. It's really life, and it's joy, and it's what keeps us alive. So I get a lot of this answer. Um, and I think that helped me create my own definition of learning. Uh, what really is, it's that. It's what for me keeps me alive. What is the motivation and the motor to 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 look for new experiences, and that feeds me a lot of energy and a lot of opportunities as well. And yeah, so that's what I think learning is. What is learning for you, Fabian?
For me, it's something similar to you because when I have been related to the topic, I think since as a child, because when you just start your school, you start learning, you start like situation, and you want to explore that situation. And when you are growing up, and maybe you are going to university, you start going to your job, you are having maybe a family, you always be learning something that give me like um, I will say like happiness to be
Mm.
alive, because if I'm alive, I can learn every day, and I can learn about the thing I love. So lean thinking, I love being a drone pilot. I love hiking, and I'm curious about that. And all my life is around what I love and how I learn from that. So for me, learning is a way of living, if I
I
have to
agree.
say a definition. Um, Sarah, if you have to see your life like a movie, um, and you have to define maybe of that movie in the last, I don't know, 10 years, what will be that high and lows of your movie?
Hmm.
In personal,
Yes.
in work, in any dimension of life.
Yeah. So yeah, it helps that you framed it in 10 years, because then it's easier. And if we look back 10 years, I would say the movie starts with a low. So it starts not with the hero journey, the usual hero journey where everything is all right and then something happens. Like if we go back to 10 years, it starts in a very low, which is when I was still working at my first job as a financial auditor. And my life changed completely since then. And at that moment, I was doing a job that I didn't like in a context that was not the right one for me. To super high pressure, very long hours for work, a lot of yeah, it was not the right environment for me. And so it was really messing up with my mental health, and I'm very glad that I was able to get out of it. And so it starts with a low, but then with a very high, which is like, took a deep breath and was brave enough to quit and to go do something else. And that was like the huge change, a huge high. And that high was possible because I decided, okay, I hate working in the financial sector. So what do I like doing? I didn't know, but I thought marketing and digital and computers, I like that. And so I studied digital marketing, and that's what took me out of the numbers world. And so that was connected to learning. Then after that, the other big high is also related to learning, which was having the ability to work in a small company where I was only the first employee, and so I could basically do everything. And my bosses really, and friends now really trusted me, and so I was like putting into practice everything I was learning, and every day was a new thing. And sometimes it was like, oh, another problem, but that really made me grow a lot. And led me to to realize that I could do a lot more than maybe my limiting beliefs had told me in the beginning of my career. So that was a big high. And then I had the opportunity to study in the UK in a very interesting and different school called Hyper Island. And that was like, it was important for my professional path, 100%, but it had a huge impact in my personal side, in my personal life, because it showed me that I usually say that it made my brain explode, because I thought the world was this big, and then all of a sudden it was this big, and I had no idea it was so wide and so tall and so in every dimension. And so that showed me jobs that I didn't know existed, like learning designer. What is that? Facilitator, even community builder. What I'm doing now, I wasn't doing that back then, but all of these things only made part of my path because I had that experience. And so that was another big high. And I'm struggling to think about lows after that, because I think after this moment, there are a lot of lows, small lows, like in every person's life. But I think after that, I was much more aware of how to turn the lows into learning opportunities. And so it's like easier to deal with that. And maybe I need to highlight a very big high positive thing that happened in my personal life recently. So I finally have a partner who I love and who is so supportive, and I feel like I can grow together with. So that's also a very important high to mention.
Well, congrats to your partner, because I think you are a great woman and you have a really great story. Here in the chat, there are people from Colombia, there are people from Holland and from Netherlands. And they say that a great history of learning, Sarah.
Thank you.
They are making some question, but before we pass to that question, um, I was also living in UK, especially
Oh.
in London, and I feel something similar
Mm.
because I came from a small city in Colombia that is called Barranca Bermeja. It's very, very, very a small city. And then I go to Bogota, that is the capital, 9 million persons. So it was a big change. But then when I was I didn't know how to speak English.
Mm.
I was able to understand, I was able to read, but I was not able to speak. So I just go there and I start working different kind of jobs. Um, and when I realized that I'm capable of doing whatever I want, but with an intention that I put, my life changed. Changed uh, since that. It was like in 2000 ago. And
Mhm.
I just start loving doing different things in my job, in my life. And you say that when we start looking for a low point in our life, we see that learning opportunity. And I would like to ask you, which are the three main like uh, back histories or the or opportunities that you think that they are going to be very, very, very bad, but at the end it was a learning for you? Could you
Mm.
share just three principal mistake
Mm.
or something that goes wrong?
Okay. Uh, that's so hard. I can think of one, but I don't want to highlight just one. So I want to think about another one. Well, I can start. So right after I returned to Portugal, after going to England, I was in Manchester, so in the north. I returned to start or to help start a project that was a new school here in Portugal, which was supposed to be very different from the normal schools, to have no teachers, no fixed curriculum, and so it was very open, and it was a huge opportunity. And I think the biggest mistake we made was breaking all the rules all at once. So we decided to take the school rule book and throw it out the window. And the problem with that, it sounded very radical and interesting, but the problem with that was that then we had a blank page that we didn't know exactly how to rewrite. And so I think although this approach can work for in some contexts, and I'm not saying that in a different moment of the world this couldn't happen, but back then I would have started step by step and being um humble about what I more humble about what I knew and didn't know. So that I think that would be a one thing, huge learning opportunity. And I think another mistake is that I made and I still make is believing that someone else knows the answers for all the questions in the world. So feeling like I need to go after those answers without sharing my own. So that I need to read more and watch more and listen more before sharing my opinion. And so it's not a specific moment in time, but it's a mindset is really hard to break. And that I think I know it comes from school. It comes from the fact that I was very well adjusted. I was a very good student. So my job was to be a good student. So my job was to know all the answers, was to study what the teacher said and then give the answers that they were looking for. And so I think I was so good at being a good student that then when in the real world, it was really hard and still is, but it's much better to realize that no one has all the answers, that some answers are incorrect in the world, and you can have the different opinion and you can have a different answer for those questions. um, and so I think that would be the other big mistake or learning opportunity in my life.
You know that one of my critical point in my life was about the you say. I was
Hmm.
always looking the answer because in my school, in my university, it was something that I was related to. And when I start my first job, I realized that the answer maybe no are in the books, maybe are in
Hmm.
the people, and maybe you have to build that answer. Um, but that cost me a lot of energy with my teams, a lot of energy in my life. Sarah, just maybe changing from
Hmm.
personal to Laura. There is a question here that said from Christian. He said that what do you think are these important factors when learning in an organization?
Mm, if I understand the question, is it the important factor for the individual or for the organizations? I think those can be two different things.
I think
Uh,
we can talk about both one.
yeah,
So from the individual and then from the
yeah,
teams.
yes. Maybe I'll start the other with the organization, because I think that's the key. Um, because the what I hear the most when I talk to organizations about learning is we don't have time. It's always that is always the excuse. Let's say, like, we don't have time. um, and if organizations want to be successful, uh, they need to make that time. They need to make the time for people to learn. And when I say learning, yes, it's about formal learning, so training and workshops and those, like, kind of very contained moments of learning, but also continuous learning. And how are we allowing people to make the time to reflect on what they are doing? How are we making that a part of their job and not something they need to do in the after hours? How are managers and seniors and the leadership really showing that that is valued? So I think it's easy to say and to hear from organizations saying, but our people are not interested in learning. I really doubt that. I think they don't have the space to do it. They have conflicting priorities with learning. And so I would start there. How do we make space for learning? Because it is part of the job. Um, then on the individual level, um, I remember reading an article that I can dig up and share with everyone, that was about exactly this. So learning at work and how it's part of the job. But they have this perspective from the individual side, which was to learn is a very vulnerable process. There's a lot of emotions coming up when you're learning. Um, One of them is feeling inadequate and feeling like you don't know enough. The need to say I don't know, it can be very vulnerable, and so it can bring a lot of shame for people when in a work context. Because in most organizations we still need to have this mask of, like, we know everything and I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm very professional, and that is the opposite of the right mindset to learn. And so from the individual, that's still a bit about the organization, but from the individual side is really understanding those emotions, uh, staying with them, reflecting on them. And there's a really great book about that called Emotional Agility, that I think can be very helpful in this context of learning.
Sarah, there is a topic that I love, and it's about emotions. And always, every leader that come to the podcast talk about that
Mhm.
emotion in leading a team. Where you are like doing a workshop in which you have to facilitate the contents or facilitate the space. And I have seen that you have a get energy and you put everyone in a high to be open to learn more. Um, how you came to that skill, because it's quite difficult right now that people put it in a high level a group.
Oh, first of all, thank you. That's a really very big compliment. I think it's part skill, yes, but it's also part personality. I think I am that person. So not that I am the person that always brings people up, not necessarily, but I like to bring people up with me. You know, like if I like to see people smile, I like to have fun. I don't take myself too seriously, or I try. And the less seriously I take myself, the more fun and learning people have. And I think it's the skill is being able to um, lead by example. In a workshop, in this specific, I think leading by example is important in every aspect of life. But in a workshop, if the facilitator is nervous or not, being nervous is normal. I still get nervous every time, but nervous is not the right word. But if you're guarded, and if you're like not being transparent, and if you're like trying to keep a very professional and uptight way of um, positioning yourself, you are reflecting that on the group. And so if you want people to have fun and have a light moment, or if you want people to reflect, you need to be reflective. So it's really being a mirror of the people in front of you. um, but I have to say that in the case of the management reporter community, which is where we've met and where you've seen me facilitate, the participants really help as well, because everyone in the community is so nice and welcoming and friendly and honest and respectful. And so I think we feed off each other's energy. I'm sure I can create that space, hold that space, but then the people stay in that space and they are willing to be in that space. So it's, I think, in other teams where people might not be there yet, it's working on that first. So really building psychological safety, helping people understand that they can bring whatever is in their minds to the table, that they don't need to pretend to be someone else. You know, like it's building that, and it's not easy. It's a long process, but it's, I think, start there if it's not if it doesn't exist yet.
Thank you, Sarah. You know, I love a concept of one of your friends, Joao. I think he's
Mhm.
content that I love the concept, snowball learning. Um, because I think when you are in a workshop in a space or any conversation, um, at the beginning it's a small step that you start like talking, and when you do that consistently, when you do that to the people, and maybe after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you have a big snowball of good emotion or positive emotion to start the learning process. So
Yes, I
love
love
that.
that. Yeah, I forgot about the snowball learning concept. Yes, for sure. It is exactly that. Like it takes. I don't know if you remember this video, like the how to start a movement that we saw with the community in the first welcome party. Were you there?
I don't remember, but I will check.
Yeah. So the video is basically like how to start a movement, and it starts with one person. The movement starts with one person dancing, and then another person joins the dance, and then five people join the dance, and then when you check it, it's like a whole crowd dancing. And it's exactly that. When you're facilitating, you're the first lone nut, like the video person mentions, but then everyone else is what creates the movement. And so you need to be the first, and then the second person starts talking, and then and speaking and sharing, and being a reflection of the emotion you're trying to convey. And then that those two people do the same for four other people, and then it's like this network effect of yeah, the behavior that you expect and the emotion that you expect in that space.
When you say that, I just one word appeared in my brain, and cultural hacking.
uh no, I can kind of understand it, but I haven't come across. No.
Because I think that through a learning process we can create hacking in any kind of company. You are starting a change in any organization. Maybe you have to do, I don't know, a big change in technology. So you are
Mhm.
implementing a new software, or maybe you are changing your structure. You have to take the early just to start the movement. But if you make like this cultural hacking, another 2% that normally are a minimum part of the population or of the team, but through a process, maybe you can change that 2% of early adopters to maybe, I don't know, 20, 30%. And I realized that most companies that doesn't do that in a frequent way. I
Yeah.
don't know if you have seen Portugal or in Europe, like using the learning process to catalyze a transformation, a big change in a company.
I can't say I have. So I've for most of my career I've worked either in small companies or as um, a business owner and solo business owner. So or a freelancer. Um, and now in the management 3.0 team, so it's still a small company. But I think you're right. I think the key is starting with the people who understand the need for the change, who are with you, and then not focus just on them. And it's not about creating like an elite. It's about uh, uh, using these people, not using is a bad word, but making these people the allies and the culture hackers or the culture builders. They go out and they um, motivate other people, because then it's not just that one person who wants to make the change or a small team. It's more people. And I was studying about change management recently for something else. And I was reading about it, and it almost felt like the models were suggesting that your job is to convince people that the change makes sense for them. And I don't think that's the right way to look at it. It's like it's making the change work for them. It's like what do they need that this change will bring to them? What if they can see that? Um, how can we motivate? It's not motivation. It's really like it's not about defining this change and then going like, this is what we're going to do. It's like defining a vision and then how we're going to do it and what it means for each person and how we're all going to adapt to this new reality. That should be done in together. And I think that's what this kind of squad, the initial team or the early adopters, this is what they can do. They can go and like, okay, so this is the vision. What does this mean? Let's all roll up our sleeves and try to understand what this means for us. Yeah, so that is how I've seen in smaller contexts, in small organizations, but that's what I've seen work and what I've seen work in my life. It might seem like it's easier to manage just one, but sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, no, and I know that meaning that having in our life is something
Mhm,
that like open a new energy in the
mhm,
organization, because it's not usual to to speak about that, about the meaning of something for you, because
mhm,
maybe we are thinking just in the profit level, or maybe we are thinking in the efficiency level that we have to have in a company. But when you start asking the person what does it mean to you, does make sense to you, I think you create perfect culture to to do that change in a quick or rapid way.
yeah.
Um, Sarah, now when you are looking maybe the social networks and the webinars that we see in LinkedIn platform, uh, there is a topic that always come up, and it's about the hard skill and soft skill that we have in a company. Do you see for the future about of the hard and soft skill? Um, because now the soft skill they are calling like the power skill. They are
Mhm,
like putting in a high position because I don't know, maybe from the last year, they are not very important, but now they are so important. What do you think about that, and the future of the hard and soft concept in in the organization and in life?
mhm. I think in the past I would have had a more radical answer to that question and tell you like, forget about hard skill, um, which is obviously impossible. And that's about like the humbleness to be able to also understand that it's not possible. I think hard skills, and again, using the common definition between hard and soft. I'm not questioning that right now. I'm going to use that concept. Um, I think hard skills are still necessary because they a lot of our jobs still depend on that. However, if I had to choose which ones to invest in and which ones to um, dedicate, a big chunk, not all the time, but a big chunk of that time that I was mentioning earlier about the time that organizations need to carve, I would invest in the soft skills or social skills or whatever we want to call it. Um, because if we look at the essential skills that we need, either in a soft skill or hard skill context, the biggest one is learning how to learn. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here potentially. Like we say in Portugal, I'm selling my own fish, but that is the truth. So things like learning how to learn, like communication, like even emotional regulation, those kinds of things, they are essential for any aspect of our lives. And you're mentioning profit and efficiency, and the focus on those two things have led us to the place where we are in the world right now, to in a world whose dying, whose conflicts which always existed throughout history, but now it seems like they are so present in our lives because we know that they exist on the other side of the world. So why are we still repeating that pattern? And I'm not saying that efficiency and profit are not important. What I'm saying is maybe it's a moment to bring the human side of things and to this mix, to give it a more preeminent, I think that's word in English, focus, and finally understand that an organization is nothing less than a group of people. And if these people are not well with themselves and with each other, if they are not they don't feel like they are capable of doing their job or just living a good life, then the organization is not successful. It doesn't matter how much profit they're making. They are probably making a lot of profit and causing a lot of harm. And I think that imbalance is no longer acceptable or desirable, or and so that's, yeah, I don't even remember what your question was. But this is where my mind went.
I love you. I say to you that this is the kind of conversation that we, because
Yeah.
I don't prepare any question that I may. I just listen to you, and I say to me, well, what what I want to know, and what the our people in LinkedIn or in to know about you. So
Yeah.
I get the point about the power of the soft skill, and you say something that I really like, that is selling our own fish. Here in Colombia, there is a quote, and you remember me, Alvin Toffler, and a book that he wrote, and he said that the analphabet of the new era is not the one that doesn't know to read, doesn't know to write. Um, is the one that doesn't know to learn
Learn.
and to say, uh, I have to learn a new thing, and I have to forget maybe the way I was doing something
Yeah.
before. So in 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 a way that when you see the power that have learning in your life, in your organization, you are capable to develop, and that's the title of this podcast, learning mindset, a way to develop meaning in life. Because you know that I talk about, I talk maybe a lot about mental health, and we are in the month of the mental health. 10 of October will be the day of mental health over the world. In organization, I think we have an opportunity to have or to highlight that topic. Uh, and I know that one way of the mental health of people, if giving learning process to them, because people want to learn new things, people want to say to them that I'm capable of doing this, I'm capable of improving myself.
Mhm.
That's life. Sarah,
Yeah. And let me take something you said now, because you said it earlier, and I want to highlight it. You said that there was a moment in your life when you realized you could do anything, and that's when you went to London and you didn't know how to speak English, and then you realized, if I can do this, I can do anything. I had a similar insight when I quit my first job. I felt like, if I can do this, I can do anything. And since then, it's like the learning process became much easier. And I think this is the block we need to remove, or help people remove it from themselves, for themselves. It's like, you can do anything. Yes, there are limitations. We shouldn't ignore social structures and systems that limit us, but in principle, we can do anything, and the world is much bigger than what we think, and the possibilities are much bigger than we think. And I think if we unlock that, I think the world will be a better place, a place with more meaning, like you mentioned. I absolutely agree with you. A place where we'll be fighting less with each other, and yeah, and I do think that learning can contribute to that.
Sarah, and I think a way to do that in organization, just to relate the topic with our main audience, that is LinkedIn, there is another concept that is the skilling and re-skilling process. And
Mhm,
I think through that, through a structure of skilling and re-skilling, we can develop people.
mhm.
Have you seen something in Europe, upskilling and reskilling to create meaning in teams, to create meaning in people? Or have you
I
read something maybe about that?
Yes, I'm trying to remember where this organization was from. I can't remember right now, so maybe Google can help us after this. But I remember hearing a story about an organization that was going to through the digital transformation process, like very big transformation process, in the sense of a lot of manual jobs would be unnecessary. Uh, and the approach they took was, yes, they were going to fire these people, but they gave them a transition period. So they, inside the organization, already knowing that these people would leave, which is amazing for me, they proposed certain trainings in skills and jobs that they knew were going to be useful in the job market. So this sounds very radical and potentially for the business minded people listening to us like a waste of resources. But I think this is exactly this is a wonderful example of how an organization who, I can't remember the name or where they are from, but who realized their role in the world, which is, yes, to make money and make shareholders happy, but it's also to provide value for everyone that is involved in that ecosystem. And so I think that's a beautiful example. Um, and it's, again, if this is radical, but in smaller chunks, we can help people realize, okay, this job might be ending, but the jobs that are out there within this organization or outside of this organization exist. And again, you can learn. I'm here supporting you to learn. Let's do this together. I think that's yeah. If more organizations can do that, I think that will change. It will change the game, because right now it's still on the individual's responsibility. Let's say that, and hands to kind of go study something else, or and that costs time and money. And organizations can be resources in those cases.
Yeah, you know that one of my for Latam, and why not for all the world,
Yeah.
is that every company see the gaps that they have in efficiency, in profit, as an opportunity to develop the talent, opportunity
Mhm.
to increase the profit, or to increase the business, opportunity to increase the talent that have each one. I know that if we have that mindset, it will result in having better every cool. But today the mindset is, I have a problem and I have to solve that problem, um, just to keep making maybe more money.
Mhm.
And if I think I have a problem, but this problem is opportunity to develop the talent that have Sarah, that Fabian, or anyone, we make a better organization and better work at the end.
Yes.
Sarah, we are getting to the end of the conversation. We just passed 15 minutes. It was really fast. I love with you. I always like every opportunity that I have to join a webinar or a case study that you lead. Um, and I know that people that are listening to us maybe want to know more about you, maybe want to learn more how they can contact to you, where we can find it.
Yeah, so the best way would be to reach out on LinkedIn. So my name on LinkedIn is Sara Noronha Ramos. And also on my project's website, so the Learning Day website, which is learningday.community. So there's a lot of information there. And we talked about Management 3.0 here. So if that sparks an interest as well, go to management3.0.com. And you will find my bio there as well, and the team page, and yeah, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Sarah. And just to end, to final question. If you have to maybe have a or give like a quote to people that in this journey in their life, maybe they are the Sara Ramos in 2012. What would that quote that you give to that person in that moment?
I would say everything is made up. Like everything around you, everything you see, someone made it up, someone invented it. So you can invent your own answers, you can invent your own way of life, you can invent everything. Everything was made up. So you have that power too.
Thank you, thank you. I like you have that power too. I think we have the power.
Yeah.
Sarah, maybe one book that you recommend to for that who love learning or one of the topic that we talked today.
Yeah, I think I would go with Emotional Agility by Susan David. That had a huge impact in me. I read it this summer, and yeah, there's a chapter on specifically about learning, but it's overall it's about using your emotions and for good, and being welcoming of any type of emotion, even if you think it's negative, and how it can be that can be the way to unlock a better life as well.
Thank you, Sarah. I will. I'm writing right now an article about that, combining like the power of lean
Yes.
thinking mindset with the emotional that some companies doesn't about that. So I love that topic too much. Thank you for the recommendation. I have read about the book.
Thank you.
I have um, maybe asking some question because I I love the power of emotion related to the power of learning, power of meaning at the end. Sarah,
Mhm.
thank you so much for this space. Is
Thank you, Fabian.
I think it's a I can say it's the best way because my wife maybe after half of this is the best way to start my day, but but it's a really good way to start my day today with you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, Fabian. It was yeah, great to talk to you, to have this space, and thank you everyone for joining as well.
Okay, so let's finish today and just good morning to everyone in Colombia. Good, lovely rest of the day for everyone that here. Thank you so much, and bye bye.